Hello everyone to sidd'stechnolog. In my very first video, I'm going to show you how to install SQL Server 2017 on a Windows 10 desktop machine. Before moving on, I would like to introduce myself. I am your host, Siddharth Chauhan. I am an MS SQL Server DBA with over 11 years of industry experience, and I am also MCSA certified in SQL Server 2016. I have majorly worked in Microsoft platform. But apart from SQL Server, I also have hands-on experience in programming languages like TSQL, .NET technologies, and PowerShell. Let's have some small introduction for SQL Server. SQL Server, as we all know, is one of the mainstream and popular relational database management system developed and owned by Microsoft. Its first version 1.0 was built in collaboration with Sybase and was released in year 1989. The collaboration, however, ended in 1995 with Microsoft releasing SQL Server 6.0. After that, they released SQL Server 7.0, which was a major rewrite of Sybase code, converting it from C to C++. It also formed the basis for its next very popular and stable version it released in year 2000 known as SQL Server 2000. After that, Microsoft released SQL Server 2005, which was a major overhaul and was the first version which was integrated with .NET Framework and also introduced its powerful and easy to use client tool known as SQL Server Management Studios or the SSMS. In this list, I have tried to list down all the significant features which was added from version 7.2 to SQL Server 2017. This is not an exhaustive list. You can find all the features variously, like if you Google it or maybe on the Microsoft site. I will try to provide links for 2014, 16, 17 in the description. There you can see these are the features related to database engine only. So here what we are going to do is that we're going to install SQL Server 2017 Developer Edition. Again, I'm going to provide the link to download in the description page. Also, we can also download ISO file from, if you create your developer account in My Visual Studios, you can also download the ISO file and can mount it. I have downloaded and mounted the setup file. It is similar to what you have seen. Uh, Very simple. Just double click on the setup.exe, and once we double click on it, it opens the SQL Server Installation Center. In the Installation Center, there are many tabs like Planning, Installation, Maintenance, Tools, Resources, Advanced, and Option. In Planning, you can check for hardware and software requirements. In Maintenance, you can do things like addition, upgrade, repair. In Tools, it provides some additional tools which you can run before installation of SQL Server. In Resources, you can find links to like books online. Then there is an Advanced tab where you can prepare. If you are doing a cluster installation, you can do some advanced preparation and checks for your cluster. Moving on to installation, the main tab. This is the page where we get the options to install a SQL Server instance, whether it be a standalone or whether it be a failover cluster. As you can see, there is a tab for reporting services in Management Studio. So these two features have been moved out from the setup. This is done to reduce the footprint of SQL Server setup, as well as because SSMS has also kept on evolving with each version. From 2016 they have now it has been separated and released with its own version. It is currently running on version 18.2. For to give you a very brief comparison about footprints, like SQL Server 2012 setup, it is over 5 GB when it includes all the features including SSMS, whereas a SQL Server 2017 setup is just under 3 GB. So there is a difference of 2 GB, uh, more or less 2 GB between these two versions. Okay, let's click on New SQL Server Standard Installation. When you click on new SQL Server standalone installation, it is going to launch the setup wizard. It can take maybe a minute or two to launch. Okay, here you go. The setup has started. The first page is to provide the product key. SQL Server provides three free editions: Evaluation, Developer, and Express. Developer has all the it's a free edition, has all the features of SQL Server Enterprise, and it is solely meant to use for personal use, for your personal development, and it is not allowed to install on servers. You can also provide product key in case you want to do Enterprise Edition installation from this setup only. We will just select the Developer Edition and click on Next. Here you will get the licensing terms. You can go through the licensing term once and click on I accept. Once the I accept is been checked, the next button will be enabled. We will click on it. It will run some server level checks that SQL Server can be installed on is ready to be installed on this system. Then it will do some installation rule check that there is no issue while installing SQL Server. You can see that there is a Windows firewall warning which we are getting. This is because the firewall is enabled and your instance may not be enabled for remote access. For a server level, when we are doing a server level installation, maybe this is important to check that your server is accessible after installation. We will click on next to move on. The next page is to select all the features of the instance, all the features you will want to provide in this instance. We are going to select like database engine services, which is the basic. We are not I'm not going to select machine learning services because this is something which SQL Server is going to download, and maybe it's something which I can add on the later on stages. Again, Polybase is the engine if you want to connect your services to directly from SQL Server to Hadoop. Yeah, it will again going to download, so I will going to skip this as well. I'm going to have analysis services. Then I will going to have data quality client, or maybe we can skip the data quality clients. I will have client tool connectivity. I'm going to use integration services, client tools backward compatibility. Then there are features like distributed replay if you want to do some kind of uh, check that your new server can take the load. You can install distributed replay. Right now we're not going to install it. I'm going to keep the instance root directory to the same. As you can see the shared features, there are going to be some features which will go to C directory only. So it is better to keep the root directory as well in the C. But you always have the choice to change that. Click on next. As you saw on the previous page, there was no option to install SSMS. Now here you have the option to choose whether you're going to run with default instance or maybe the named instance. The difference between the two is that when you choose default instance, you will access your instance with the server name only. Whereas when you choose a named instance, you have to provide your server will be like, for example, if I give inst1, you will access your server with your instance with server name slash instance name. I will going to keep a default instance. The use of named instance is that when you already done your default instance, you can also create multiple instances on the same server. Click on next. Now at this page, you get an option to provide account names which your service is going to use to run. By Microsoft default recommendation, these accounts should be the least privilege, so that least privilege to avoid any kind of security concerns. I'm going to keep them at default, but if you are doing it on your server, you need to provide Windows level account names here. It is preferred to provide Windows level accounts here. Then now there is an option also to provide permission like grant perform volume maintenance task. This is to provide instant page initialization. What happens is that when you, so let's suppose that if you are creating a database and set is pre-default size or pre-default size to 2 GB, the SQL Server directly creates a 2 GB file. Whereas if you do not check it, if the account does not have this permission, what will happen is that it will create a file and first it has to fill it with zeros. So that is going to take a lot of time. So we will provide this permission to the account. You can also choose the startup type of the service, whether it want to be automatic, disabled, or manual. So if you want to, if you are doing it on your machine, you may keep it at manual so that it does not always start with your system and slow it down. For a server, it is always preferred to keep it at automatic so that whenever your server, if you are doing patching and you starting your server, your SQL server should start. Now, when at this page, there are several configurations for the instance we're going to provide. This is the database engine configuration page. The first thing is to choose the authentication mode. We have two authentication modes available, Windows authentication and mixed mode authentication. When we choose the mixed mode authentication, you get SQL Server as well as Windows authentication. The recommended is obviously the Windows authentication, which was chosen by default, which was selected by default. You can go with mixed mode authentication in case you are using such tools which does not use Windows Authenticator or Windows account password or AD accounts. The password here, we have to provide password for SA account, because when we enable SQL Server authentication, one account which is inbuilt is SA account that gets enabled. So hence we have to provide a password. In the specify SQL Server administrator tab, you are going to provide all the users who will be part of the administrative group. You can use the add button to, if you are doing it on your server, you can use the add button to add your group, for example your DBA group, so that all of the DBAs can have the permissions, will be sysadmins by default on the instance. Or maybe you can choose add current, like if you are doing on your local machine, you can just click on add current user and it will add the current user. Then going to the second tab, it is the data directory tab. Here you can choose where should the SQL Server installation go by default. So the data root directory, it is for here it will going to create the logs, error logs, your master MSDB and the default system databases, as you can see. And also you have option to choose your data user data directory and user log directory as well as backup directory. Let's change that. When you're doing an installation on your server, it is recommended that you keep your system databases in a separate directory or separate drive. Your user database, that is the data or MDF and DF files, data files in separate drive, and your log files in separate drive, as well as your backups. I am keeping that in same single drive because this is my local system. I'm going to create a new directory and leave it as backup. I'm going to select that. Now the thing which has been moved out into a separate tab are tempdb. From SQL Server 2016 onwards, the SQL Server gives you an option that you can create multiple tempdb files while doing installation. I'm going to keep it number of files one only. Change the directory source. Not changing the initial size, but you can change the number of files and the initial size. I personally prefer to do these change after installation because there are much more control which you can do it. Then the last and final tab is file streams. You can enable it from here, which is available in SQL Server. In case you want to use the file streams, we will maybe cover it in upcoming videos. What are file streams? So for now, I'm not enabling it. We can enable it at the later stage. I'm just going to click on next. Here, this is the NSS Services Configuration Manager. Here you can choose which kind of mode your NSS services want to run in, whether it be multi-dimensional, tabular mode or Power Pivot. I'm going to keep it a tabular mode which is default and add myself as the admin. For data directory, again I'm going to change it. I have chosen the data directory. Now let's choose the log directory. We can also type it down. Here we go. Now clicking on next. So all of our features, selection and configurations are done. This is the final page before the installation begins. Here it also generates an INI file for the boot in the bootstrap. You can use this config INI file, for example, if you are doing installation on servers and you have a standard template build for your servers, and then you can directly use this INI file. Once this is generated, you can directly use it to do remote installation, unmanaged remote installation, or automate your installations. Here also, this is a summary page. You can see what all features you have selected, what all configurations you have made, and what SQL Server is going to install on your machine. Just click on install and the installation will begin. So this is all, folks. This is how you can install SQL Server 2017 on your Windows desktop machine. Please like my video in case you liked it, and also subscribe my channel for the latest updates. Whenever I upload a video, you can get the latest updates. Thanks for tuning in. Have a nice day.